Hello, it's Deb. "2020, eh?" One thing we don't hear very much about, because all things considered, who gives a damn, are those of us who are locked up alone by ourselves. In my case, I've been living in pandemic conditions for a decade. Because of the toxicity of modern living, I simply did not have the capacity to pretend that the man-made toxins of our world were not killing me. So I hibernated for a living. Somebody get me Dr. Walker, Dr. Matthew Walker, stat, Berkeley. Hibernation is good medicine. And when you have a polar bear body, as I did, one can most assuredly sleep to stay alive. I'm feeling the effects right now of the brain damage that has taken away my ability to compete in a fragile world where every human is supposedly just magically capable of spending 40 hours doing things that make no sense to them, that seem fraudulent, that collect all the abundance of human life force and put it in GL balances for the few. It's all crazy civilization. Does my head in. And I got a great head. I understand how to talk about being human entirely within the scope of uniting everything we've ever thought about ourselves. Separating what's a story and what is backed up. Most of the stories have to be the fact that we just think that humans are different than everything else in the universe. That's from religion. That's not science. It takes a philosopher to really piece that out, because all these bullies, show me the study bullies, they're really, really fearful little boys. Because it doesn't make sense. So they gotta go around making you read studies that they don't comprehend, that they know that the press releases have really nothing to do with what was studied, nor the little bit of results that maybe in the future this can be continued to be followed up upon and might lead in someone else's lifetime to a change. Well, in my own goddamn lifetime, I went from 49 years of morbid obesity to not knowing quite exactly what's going on over here. I didn't follow a single rule of weight loss. And it just keeps evaporating and evaporating and evaporating. Yet I have no one to talk to about it, no one to share, no matter what. I'm a rare human being. in very demonstrable ways. And in COVID times, I'm being utterly, 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 utterly ignored. It's not right. When you build a civilization where corporations are the emperor's non-existent clothes, humans will be walking around as if feeding the capitalism machine is normal, is how brains are supposed to work, is what bodies are to be subjected to. And this is not the case. What I'm here to tell you human potential is astounding. And there is a gear that I am quite able to talk about in a very resilient, logical way to explain it. We can shift our brain into altered states of consciousness, just like I'm doing right now. Just like a performer. Just like artistic creation. Just like sometimes taking a little bit of a drug. Alcohol. These things are not bad. The reason we turn to so many substances is to get the natural high that our civilization has socialized away from the daily maintenance of human bodies. The bodies need pleasure. They function so well when you're in pleasure. I'm telling you, if you're part of a non-hunter-gatherer tribe, you know what being a caged human feels like. You know what being a socialized into how zoos work human. We have a freedom and a wildness within us. It is magical. It's magnetic. And all I need is just a little bit of financial support. And I'm going to explain all this. It's all about the electromagnetic spectrum. Nothing more fundamentally scientific than that, and nothing. I need to do no research. I just needed to synthesize from basic Wikipedia entries, from the top few results of Google. Now, you can't just go like this. I mean, the more you listen to me, and if you spend a few hours understanding the breadth and the depth and the integrated sphere of the philosophical hypothesis of bioelectricity awarded sometime, some way in a new philosophical Nobel Prize situation to Deb Helfrich because, yo, I did it. There you everything. It's because of the burden of language and the traps of language. And of course, as a philosopher, you're just about valid premises. Well, the valid premise of my body required an entirely different maintenance capacity than other people in the world. And I never pruned those neurons on my own homeodynamic balance. I struggled for 49 years just to every bit of energy, the energy that most humans spend on loving other people, on being social creatures, I had none of that energy. I lived a life of near utter loneliness because I didn't have the energy. Because of the circumstances of my childhood. And nothing bad happened. Nothing officially traumatic. I basically say it's three things. Three things that could have happened to anyone and have happened to many more other people. For me, it's the lack of all this other stuff to cloud knowledge about other people's lives, knowledge about what it feels like to fall in love, go on dates, things like that. Since I have none of that, I had the room to keep going. Well, this is my story, and it doesn't make sense. And of course, it should make sense. Our human stories should make sense. And when they do, that's its own form of pleasure. The public pain I can showcase on these lives, on this hurt of being ignored, of being neglected, because I know I was born, I know I have a philosophical brain. I know that having a philosophical brain is because of certain challenging circumstances in one's childhood. That's what brings the complexity. Something is so wrong that an infant has to figure out things far more complex than typical infants developing in a secure environment with secure attachments. Having had no secure attachment to any human, so far as I know yet, periods of secure attachment, but no, we'll be there when the chips are down attachments. I've only known my own mind. So I know my mind in a way few humans have had the necessity to learn about themselves. That's what #Redheaded She-Hulk is all about. Processing this neglect, getting angry on my own behalf, because even if nobody ever intended me harm, oh my God, it can't just be like this, that I just have no one to speak to. Ever. Don't matter how much I beg and plead for conversations. I get life coached. We all are. Streamlining, scaling, algorithmizing. It's not how human brains and bodies were built. We're built for entirely new, innovative, integrative, constant evolution, adaptation to stressors that are not of, it's a hard word here. Human civilization right now in 2020 is mechanistic. I don't have a ready word in English to tell you the difference between this current paradigm, which is entirely false. Humans do not work like machines. Everything about the scientific method in this whole show me the study mentality is built on the premise of that we're machines, reproducibility. Now, that can be good for stuff. Walls, concrete slabs, they operate in pretty standard ways. But you know, how I became, my spidey sense was a mold exposure behind a wall. Seeking out, seeping out, growing from the spaces under the sinks. The spores coming through all of the areas. Supposedly, building materials are not alive. and yet my walls done fucked with my brain damage. That's what makes my brain work the way it does right now. Awfully creative, very circular. I don't do linear very well. I don't do things that create easy revenue very well, but I can create exponential revenue. I can create the Socratic dialogues, the Socratic monologues that bring about an evolution in thinking. It's hashtag well-being philosophy. And all it took was breaking math. Because as soon as I can explain to you 1 + 1 = 3, which takes me 9 words, I'm that good. 1 man + 1 woman = a third baby. Once you see that life operates from a foundational equation of 1 + 1 = 3, it's not counting us. It doesn't matter counting whole, full individuals. I mean, you can if you want to, if you need to sit people at a table in a restaurant. Oops. COVID has taken that from us. COVID has shown us that by the numbers, not very useful when it comes to uniting as a species. We got all the data. Everyone's tracking the data, tracking the cases, tracking the deaths, tracking the mask compliance. Masks are fundamentally useless. Useful if you are actually infected and you have a life and death need to go out and purchase yourself some food. And you keep that to yourself for as short of time as possible. Putting masks on all the rest of us with all the things that people are... It's not airborne, y'all. It has to be transmitted from a synovial fluid. I think synovial is going to work in this case. Now you're going to think about what's in your body. But what I'm really trying to talk about is an electrified fluid, a fluid that's alive. So there's this thing where the virus stays viable on different surfaces, cardboard, metal, et cetera, for different amounts of time. Because viruses aren't alive. So viruses you can use as counting math, 1 + 1 = 2. But everything that travels with viruses and what transports them from one host to another host, and then in the host, they're parasitic, viral, and take over everything that's going on. But outside of a host, or in the proximity of like a other mammal, and your dog and cats aren't getting COVID, right? So there's something about the specific bioelectricity of human spittle, snot, that keeps the viability of the virus. So what you need to not do is not so much worry about it. I mean, if somebody just come up and sneeze right in your sneezer, that's a problem. But overall, again, and there's that biofield transmission space. You're very much not likely to get an actual infected person sneezing on you, coughing at you. You're picking up the virus on something. Gloves, far more important than masks. Many, many, many levels and ways and shit for gloves. Simple public health pivot. Who's in charge? I don't know. Certainly not a wise feminine philosopher. So here's the deal. I'm in dramatic need. The only person I have to talk to is myself. And yet, all I do is speak about the value I can offer to others. Where's the life-centric thinking that can help our species see what's good for our own selves? That's the question that I'll leave us with today. You can tell the difference when I'm trying to process what have I thought about, what should I finish up, how's the timing. My brain a gear is stuck. It's your normal beta brainwaves, your normal force things to happen in the world state. I can create like a motherfucker, but I simply cannot deal with a world whose rules are so nonsensical. Because I never prune most of the sensory neurapses, neurons and synapses, Norapsis. I like that. I think I might use Norapsis. See, that's the thing. In the old way, I'd have gotten on my own case. There, I leaned into Norapsis. And it's a kind of fascinating term. It's a term that probably, we just go to Wikipedia right now, and there's probably a specifically precise complexity in Norapsis that allow me to end up right around the 23 minutes I so desire. You can tell everything about my pleasure in speaking, my pleasure in thinking and speaking simultaneously. The fact that, well, this happened and this happened, so there it happened. Oh, Norapsis. That's why I get to be the little redheaded girl who grows up to give Sigmund Freud vagina envy. I can see that Norapsis is a pretty useful phrase. And I always forget who made that, but some 70s sitcom character. But I myself was obsessed with the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, Incredible Hulk. Now that is going to be over and out at precisely 23:18.